are the holy criminals whose mysteries have made them famous throughout the world for centuries. They are the ancient warriors who changed the course of history and disappeared into the history they changed. Call them a sect, a society, an organization. I'm talking about the Knights Templar, of whom we know very little about their secrets and purposes. Let us accompany them on their journey through the pages of history, looking for an exit in the light of mysterious events. The year is the 12th century. The world is in a state of gloomy chaos. Unfortunately, as is the case today, religious elements have become a symbol of power and politics. The most populous religion in the world, especially in Europe, is Christianity. Jerusalem, as it is today, is Holy Land for the three great religions. Perhaps the city that has seen the most battles in history. Jerusalem is also drenched in blood in the 12th century. Of course, such sacred and precious lands have many guardians during these years. Although they set out for Jerusalem to fulfill their religious pilgrimage obligations, the vast majority of European Christians were either robbed or killed before they even saw Jerusalem. In such a sad and chaotic century, our story inevitably intersects with that of the Templars. One of these European Christians, Hugues de Payens, was a knight from a noble French family. After the Crusades, the journey to Jerusalem was both dangerous and deadly, as the roads to Jerusalem were plagued by deserters, mercenaries, and thieves. Unable to bear the deaths of his race and his fellow pilgrims, Payens and 8 of his relatives founded the Order of the Poor Fellow, Soldiers of Christ. The purpose of this order was to ensure that Christians could make their holy journeys safely and to secure the roads to Jerusalem. Such an important task would inevitably require financial support. So the Poor Fellow, Soldiers of Christ, went to King Baldwin I of Jerusalem, hoping for help and support. King Baldwin, who greatly appreciated this order volunteering for such an important task for Christianity, granted the Poor Fellow, Soldiers of Christ, an area on the Temple Mount, which we now know as the Mount of Olives. But such a favor would not be without reciprocity. King Baldwin asked the order to carry out excavations for religious artifacts, such as the Golden Chalice, the cross on which Jesus was crucified, and the remains of Solomon's temple. The area assigned to the poor companions of Christ on the Temple Mount was very close to both the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the area believed to be Solomon's temple. From now on, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ would not only be responsible for the safety of Christian pilgrims. For 10 years, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ transported many European Christians safely to and from Jerusalem and helped them to become pilgrims. By word of mouth, they were able to win great popular affection. Hearing that the roads to Jerusalem were now safe, almost the entire European population flocked to Jerusalem. However, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ, still dependent on donations and the small support of those who trusted them, were unable to expand their order and take more believers to Jerusalem because of a lack of funds. In fact, as their name suggests, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ were so poor that they symbolized their poverty with the image of 2 knights on a horse on their flag. At the same time, they were trying to fulfill the mission of excavation assigned to them by the King of Jerusalem and were struggling for financial support. Not much later, in 1129, the fame of the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ, which was spreading among the people, finally reached the ears of the Pope. The order, which attracted the Pope's attention and admiration, was finally approved by him and proclaimed in a papal bull. According to the bull, the poor companions of Christ would no longer pay taxes, could travel freely between countries, and would only be judged by the Pope. Moreover, because they were announced by the papal bull, donations and lands poured in from Christians all over Europe. The order, which began with 9 people, quickly grew to hundreds and, within a few years, to thousands. To be a member of the order was now a highly desirable duty because of the rights they had. The public held them in great affection, and even the poorest Christians donated everything they had in recognition of their services to their religion. Poor fellow, soldiers of Christ were no longer poor, nor, according to many sources, were they followers of Jesus. The public already recognized them as Knights Templar because of the excavations they carried out in Solomon's temple. The increasing number of daily pilgrims to Jerusalem led to the growth of the order. However, only those who could pass the strict rules and prove themselves could join the Knights Templar. Being a member of the order was now a highly respected position, so the conditions and rules were equally strict. Irrespective of race, being of knightly descent was the first requirement for joining the Templars. The main reason for this requirement was the belief at the time that the warrior spirit was genetic. In addition, a member of the Order of the Knights had to be reliable and fearless. Revealing a secret discussed within the order would result in the death penalty. Finally, one of the unalterable rules was to donate all one's possessions to the order. While I mentioned earlier that there was no racial discrimination in joining the Templars, there was a requirement to be a pure-blood Frenchman to be eligible for the 13-member council of the order. Candidates who met all the requirements were admitted to the order through secret initiation ceremonies, which remain a mystery to this day, and swore an oath of allegiance. With such an important organization, the Templars spread like a spider's web across Europe, the African coasts, and the Middle East. They received so many donations and support that they even began to lend money at interest to state officials. Although this situation, known today as usury, was one of the forbidden practices of Christianity, they practiced it openly. Lords, kings, nobles, all were indebted to the Templars, who were expected to uphold the values of their religion. In Christianity, interest was strictly forbidden. Ironically, however, another name borrowed from the order was the Pope, God's shadow on earth. The Templars had developed their system to such an extent that a Christian going on pilgrimage from Europe to Jerusalem would give the money he wanted to spend in Jerusalem to the Templars in France and receive a piece of paper with strange symbols on it. The members of the order instructed the pilgrims to give this paper to the knights on their arrival in Jerusalem. When the pilgrims arrived in Jerusalem and handed over the paper, they received the amount of wealth they had delivered in France. This system was designed to eliminate the risk of being robbed or plundered during the journey. The order had become so wealthy that each Templar had at least 5 servants working under him. With staff for cleaning, horse care, daily chores, and much more, the members of the order lived a life that was hard to imagine, constantly increasing their wealth by lending money to state officials. At this point, you may ask if these members of the order who became rich with the money of the believers lived a lavish life, why didn't the people or the state officials stop them? I asked this question many times during my research, and after my research, I can say with an open heart that they were the largest military organization of their time. All the knights, carefully selected, possessed military skills ahead of their time and grew richer every day with donations from all over the world. The organization and structure was so professional that the founder of the Knights Templar, Hugues Payens, even wrote a book called Latin Rule, which dealt with the rules and behavior that the knights should follow. According to this book, no Templar could leave the battlefield until the Red Cross flag, the symbol of the order, had fallen to the ground. Knights of the order had to rush to the battlefield before the enemy and not leave until the last enemy had been killed. If the Templars were on the verge of defeat, a knight's first duty was to disguise himself and infiltrate the enemy's forces, rather than surrender or flee. These rules led to strong organization and success. Let's come to the part where history intersects with us. There was also a Turkish group among the Templars called the Turcopoles, which means sons of Turks. At this point, I know you are divided into 2 different groups, with reactions of Turks are everywhere again. And what are we doing there? But let's look together what the Turks were doing there. In 1096, the first route of the Crusades, initiated by papal decree, passed through Anatolian geography. At that time, the Anatolian Seljuk state, which ruled part of Anatolia, had a population that adhered to the shamanistic beliefs that had persisted for centuries. However, With Islam not yet fully established and a cosmopolitan population, many of the Christian Turks who served as mercenaries during this encounter would later serve as Templars. These Turks, who generally served as cavalry in the Order's army, were known for many years as Turcopoles. Leaving aside the military and warfare aspect, let's come to the important detail that perhaps carried the name of the Knights Templar into our present day and led me to give them the title of today's video. As you know, the primary duty of the Knights Templar was not only to secure the roads to Jerusalem. Their other mission was to reach those sacred pieces and relics that were very important for Christianity. At this point, many renowned historians claim, although nothing has been scientifically proven, that they did indeed reach many relics that could change the course of history. The most important detail that strengthens this claim is the constant silence of the Pope, the leader of Christianity, despite the numerous irregularities committed by the members of the order. The golden chalice, the cross on which Jesus was crucified, the Ark of Covenant. Who knows, maybe the relics they found were so powerful that they could even make the Pope kneel. Having achieved such fame and glory, the Knights Templar gained more and more territory with each passing day, almost becoming a holy name of the Christian religion. Most rulers were heavily indebted to the order, and money continued to flow into the order. From all directions. But neither fame, nor glory, nor money. It was all to end just a few years later. Let me introduce you to the man who would bring Jerusalem back under Muslim rule and almost put an end to the Templars. Saladin. Saladin, a Muslim leader renowned for his strategic intelligence in the Arabian deserts, was displeased with the Christian invasion of the Holy Land. In addition, Saladin wanted to put an end to the organizational activities in Jerusalem and sent his large Muslim army to Jerusalem. But even such a war strategist would make a critical mistake that put the Muslims at a serious disadvantage. Saladin ordered his army to split up and raid nearby villages. The plan of the Templars and Christians was to ambush and capture the scattered Muslim units one by one. This plan worked so well that after defeating all the Muslim units, the Christians reached King Saladin's security forces. For the Muslims under Saladin's command, the only option was to return to Egypt. Having learned a great lesson from his mistakes, Saladin, a leader with a highly developed war intelligence, would not repeat the same mistake. Thus, only a few years later, Saladin launched a campaign to Jerusalem and succeeded in taking the keys to Jerusalem, which would remain under Muslim rule for centuries after his death. Although the Christians and the Templars besieged Jerusalem several times after this heavy defeat, they could not break this cycle of fate for centuries. Now the bells were ringing for the heroic Templars. Now that Jerusalem is in Muslim hands, what is the need for the Templars? I know there are those who ask this question, and I believe it was asked by the people and state officials of the time, as trust and love for the members of the order began to diminish with each passing day after the war defeat. Despite the decline in donations to the order, they had become so wealthy over the years that they would go down in history as the largest order in the world in financial terms. Almost all the nobility were in debt to the Templars, and with this wealth they had dealt a severe blow to the French economy. Aware of the situation, King Philip IV of France realized that the order had become a significant detriment to his country and urgently needed to be eliminated. However, he could only abolish an order that had been approved by the Pope through legal means. In order to dissolve the order, pay off the nobles' debts, and confiscate the order's property, he organized a meeting to which he invited the Templars' 13-member governing council. During this meeting, hundreds of Templars were raided and arrested throughout the country, all to be tried on false charges. Accusations of homosexuality, Satanism, blasphemy against Jesus, and theft, among many others, were made against the members of the order. Captured Templars were ordered to confess to these charges or face execution, and those who refused to confess were subjected to unspeakable and bloody tortures to force a confession. Many members of the order, unable to endure the tortures, opted for execution and confessed to all charges, even if they were innocent. Finally, after the leader of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, confessed to the charges, the official end of the order came. The prominent leader of the order, Jacques de Molay, was publicly burned at the stake for hours on end by special order of the king. However, Jacques de Molay, like almost all Templar leaders, was a highly intelligent leader. Understanding King Philip's plan, a few hours before his execution, Jacques de Molay ordered all the Templars to burn all documents relating to their property. Moreover, on the night when all the knights were arrested in the raids, more than 10 ships belonging to the order left the French coast fully loaded, never to return. Although the order's total membership was thought to be between 15,000 and 20,000 at its peak, the number of members arrested and executed by King Philip's decree was only a few hundred. The remaining thousands of Templars were never heard of again. The members of the order, who seemed to vanish into thin air, also took all their portable possessions with them. The rest was lost or untraceable, as all records were burned. So where did all those members of the order, those ships of the order, go? This is one of the many unanswered questions to which historians are still searching for answers. Some claim that they migrated to the Alps and founded what is now Switzerland. The basis for this claim is shown by the bank reserves that Switzerland holds today. Who knows, perhaps all the wealth of present-day Switzerland really is thanks to the Knights Templar. We can only speculate about the rumors and legends because they are the tired warriors who disappeared into the dusty pages of history, burning what they left behind and hiding all their secrets.